Guten Tag, everyone. I'm little Luther, here to teach you some simple theology. Martin Luther said in the Small Cold Articles that even a 7-year-old child knows what the church is. So I'm here to teach you some theology that's so simple that even a child could understand it. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the topic of the rapture. Now, Matthew chapter 24 verses 36 to 44 is one of the key texts for the dispensationalist view of the secret rapture. The secret rapture is a doctrine held by premillennialists. The teaching of a secret rapture depends on whether you hold to a pre-tribulation rapture, a mid-tribulation rapture, or a post-tribulation rapture. This is based on Revelation chapter 7 verse 14, where the saints in heaven are called those coming out of the great tribulation. The premillennialists believe that there will be a literal 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth before the final judgment, but that before this 1,000-year period, there will be some great tribulation. And so depending on whether you hold to a pre, mid, or post-tribulation depends when you think the secret rapture will take place. Whether it will take place before the tribulation, so that the Christians are spared the tribulation, or during the tribulation, or sometime after the tribulation, when only the true faithful Christians are left. All three hold to the same view of a secret rapture. That sometime before the 1,000 period reign of Christ, the Christians will be secretly raptured away into heaven, leaving all the unbelievers left below to suffer the final judgment. This, however, is not the biblical view of the rapture. There are two other types of theologians when discussing the end times. The postmillennialists, such as the Anabaptists and the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the amillennialists, such as Lutherans and the Roman Catholics. Neither the postmillennialists nor the amillennialists believe in the secret rapture of Christians before the 1,000-year reign of Christ. The postmillennialists believe in a literal 1,000 years that takes place sometime before the second coming of Christ. Essentially, there is a 1,000-year countdown before Christ comes back. As for the amillennialists, we believe that the 1,000 years of Revelation 20 is a symbolic number, referring to a period between the ascension and the second coming. For if one looks at Revelation 20, Satan is said to have been bound for this 1,000-year period. This happens with the death of Christ on the cross. For as Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14 says, through his death he has destroyed the one who has power over death, that is, the devil. And as Colossians chapter 3 verses 14 to 15 says, by his death on the cross, Christ has disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame. As for Christ reigning for 1,000 years, that is taking place right now. For he is reigning now seated at the right hand of God. As 1 Peter 3:22 says, Christ is seated at the right hand of God with angels, authority, and powers subjected to him. So the supposed 1,000 years reign of Christ is not a literal 1,000 years reign of Christ on earth, but is a reference to Christ reigning over us now at the right hand of God. As for the Great Tribulation of Revelation 7, this is not a reference to some great war or judgment that takes place before the second coming. Instead, this is a reference to the present age, from the time of the fall to the time of Christ's return. And as for the rapture, some will claim that postmillennialists and amillennialists do not believe in a rapture. This is not true. We do believe in a rapture, but not of the same kind as the premillennialists. We do believe that the Christians who are left alive on earth will be raptured and carried away into heaven at the second coming of Christ. What we don't believe is that there will be some great war or 1,000-year reign of Christ. Instead, we believe that at the return of Christ, those who are left alive will be caught up into the air to meet Christ, and those Christians who have gone before us, as St. Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 17. And this will all be done very quickly, for as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15:51-52, We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in a twinkling of the eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. In order to understand the biblical doctrine of the rapture, we need to understand the two key texts. Matthew chapter 24 verses 37 through to 41 and 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verses 13 through to 17. We also need to take a look at the word rapture and what this refers to. The word rapture comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 17. In the Greek, the word is hapagisomethe, meaning we shall be caught up. In the Latin, in the Vulgate, this becomes rapimur. The noun form of this is raptus, meaning a carrying off. In medieval Latin, this became raptura, and in French, rapture. This word in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 17 also appears in 2 Corinthians 12:2, where Paul talks about the man caught up to the third heaven. And in Revelation chapter 12 verse 5, where Jesus is caught up to God and to his throne. The word does not actually appear in Matthew chapter 24. Instead, Matthew 24 verses 40 to 41 uses the word paralambatai, meaning is taken. This is important because of the way in which the Bible uses different terms to refer to believers and unbelievers. The word rapture appears in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 17 in reference to believers being caught up to heaven. Matthew 24, however, does not talk about Christians being carried away into heaven. Instead, Jesus says that at the coming of the Son of Man, it will be like the days of Noah's flood. People will be eating and drinking and marrying and giving into marriage until the flood came and took them away. Now verse 39 uses a different word for took them away than verses 40 and 41. But one cannot overlook the connection between these two verses. In verse 39, the flood waters took away the wicked, and in verses 40 and 41, people were taken away. The premillennialists will claim that the Christians are taken away while the unbelievers are left below. But this is not in agreement with the text. Jesus says in verse 39, the flood came and took them away. So it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. The flood came in judgment and swept away the unbelievers. So too, the coming of Christ will sweep away the unbelievers and leave the Christians. It is the unbelievers who are taken away first in judgment, and only then will Christ return to rapture the believing Christians. Just take a look at Matthew chapter 13 verse 30 in the parable of the wheat and the weeds. In it, the weeds are gathered up first and burnt, while the wheat is gathered up second and taken into the barn. There will be a rapture of Christians from the earth, but this will take place after the unbelievers have been taken away in judgment. There will not be some secret rapture of the Christians before the second coming of Christ. Those taken away in Matthew 24 are not the righteous, but the unrighteous. To quote Reverend Ryan Wolfmiller of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, you do not want to be the one taken. The one taken is the one taken away in judgment. So then, if the premillennialist view of a secret rapture is not biblical, what then is the biblical view of the rapture? Well, following the resurrection, Christ ascended into heaven and is now reigning on high at the right hand of God. This shall continue for an unknown period of time. For no one knows neither the day nor the hour, and Christ shall return at an hour that no one expects. As Psalm 110 verse 1 says, Jesus will be seated at the right hand of God until the day when his enemies are made his footstool. At the coming of the Lord, his enemies shall be trampled down and defeated. And as Revelation chapter 20 verse 10 says, the devil and his angels will be thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur to be tormented day and night forever. Then shall come the judgment of the wicked. As 1 Corinthians 15:29 says, all the dead shall be raised bodily. But as John 3:18 and Mark 16:16 says, not all shall receive eternal life. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 16 tells us that the dead shall be raised first. And Revelation chapter 20 verses 13 through to 14 tells us that hell shall give up all who dwell there, and they will be judged, each according to what they have done. And the wicked shall be thrown into the lake of fire. Then shall the living be harvested from the earth. As Matthew 24:38-41 tells us, just as the flood swept away the wicked, but spared righteous Noah and his family, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. The angels of the Lord shall harvest the earth, and the wicked shall be taken, while the righteous are left. As Matthew 13:30 tells us, the wicked shall be taken first and thrown into the everlasting fire. As Revelation 15 says, anyone's name who is not found written in the Lamb's book of life, he will be thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. As for those of us who are still alive and who believe in the Lord, as 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 17 says, we will be caught up together with the believers in heaven, and we will meet the Lord in the air. This is the biblical view of the rapture. As 1 Corinthians 15:52 says, in a twinkling of an eye, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall all be changed. We shall put off the perishable and mortal flesh for that which is imperishable and immortal. As Matthew chapter 25 verse 34 tells us, the Lord shall say unto us, come you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And we shall enter into the new heavens and the new earth, for the old heavens and the old earth have passed away. And there shall be a new Jerusalem, but there shall be no temple in the city, for our temple shall be the Holy Trinity. And peoples from all nations, tribes, and tongues shall be gathered into the new Jerusalem. But there shall be nothing unclean in the city, nor will anyone do what is false or detestable, for only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life shall be there. This is the true biblical view of the rapture. This is how the rapture shall take place.